Hey, welcome to Abby's Den. I'm Abby. In this video I'm going to show you how to do a rolled hem. Some chiffon. It's 150 centimetres wide, so it's not your regular 115 centimetre wide chiffon that you normally buy off the roll. It was actually a wider one. I bought 1.5 meters because that's how long the one I bought from the high street was. And I've chopped it down so it's 1 metre wide. So instead of the width of it being 150 centimetres, I've chopped it down to 100 centimetres. So it's 100 centimetres by 150 centimetres. It literally is just a rectangle. And what it means is it's not too heavy around my neck. There you go. You can see that rectangle. So it doesn't sit too heavy around my neck. And it's long enough to sort of give me that security that I feel I need. And it also means that I can wrap it around on a cooler day. So I've got that 150 centimetres and I'm getting caught up in threads because I haven't actually finished the edge. So what I'm going to do is show you how to do a rolled hem on the overlocker. But let me show you, this time instead of using moon threads, which I always do, I've got some Overlock from Gutterman, keep thinking Goldilocks, and I've got some bulky thread. I think it's called Bulky Lock as well. And this is a woolly nylon. So they're both from Gutterman. I wasn't really aware that Gutterman did Overlock thread. I don't know why, but they do. Anyway, so we're going to use that. I'm all for good quality thread. I will sing its praises forevermore. So the best I've always used is the moon threads, but we're going to give this a try. I've used it already in another project and it came out beautifully. I've just not used this woolly nylon yet. So I'm going to put this, I can use it on any of the 4 positions. There's no point in using it in the needles. I know lots of people use Bulky Lock in the needles. Needles are just stitching your regular seam line. It's the bulk that you want from a woolly nylon, so you just want the loopers really to be using, you just want to be using this in your loopers because it adds that extra fullness. It's a messy thread to use in your overlocker, so I only like to use it in the loopers, and I'm only going to use it in the top looper and the upper looper. Okay, let me show you how to do that. Set the machine up for a rolled hem. We just need to make a few adjustments. So I want the stitching to be very close to the edge, like that. So for me to have the stitches close to the edge, I only use 1 needle. So I'm keeping the right needle and removing the left needle. That left needle will make my stitches very wide, so that's no good. So stick with just 1 needle. Use a needle that's appropriate to the fabric that you're using. So I'm using a chiffon, so I'm going to use a thin needle. So I'm using a regular standard 60 needle, and that's there. So don't worry about your machine telling you have to only use a specific brand or a specific type or a specific size. That doesn't matter. Use the needle that's relevant to the fabric that you're using. So the next thing we want to adjust is the setting for the rolled hem. Now the rolled hem is created by the fabric flopping over. So what happens is all the overlockers have this little thing, most do, and have a little thing called a finger, and it sort of sits there and acts like a table. You'll see it on your machine. On the Brother machine, you actually pull and remove the finger out, so careful not to lose that. On the Singer and other models, you can just adjust this setting from standard to rolled hem. When you remove the finger, what happens is the fabric sort of flops over, and what we want to do is roll that fabric over and allow it to sit folded underneath. And the way to do that is by pulling on the lower thread. So we tighten the upper looper. So I'm going to tighten this, and according to the manual, if I check the manual, it tells me to change the setting to 6 for a 3-thread narrow edge. This isn't a narrow edge, this is a rolled hem, and that's because we've removed the fingers. So I'm increasing the tension to 6. Reduce the tension on the top looper so it allows it to form evenly, and I'm going to reduce that to 3. And that's what your manual will tell you. So if you have a different machine, check your manual. On a Janome machine, I will increase that to 7, and that one maybe to 2. So check your manual for the settings, or have a play around and see what works for you. Essentially, you've got to increase the upper looper and reduce the lower looper. The next thing we want to do is also bring the knife closer. We want to only turn over a tiny bit of fabric. So we're going to reduce the amount we cut. So we don't want a wide cut, we only want a narrow cut. So we reduce the amount we fold over. The fabric folds over. So we reduce the knife. I'm going to turn the knife down to the lowest number. And if I show you, you can see the knife moves right over, close to the foot. The next thing we need to do is adjust our stitch length. Now, a stitch length is on 3, so you might like a stitch length of 2, which is what I've used here, or you might like it even looser. Now let me just give you a couple of tips. When you start to when you start to serge, help the fabric by going slowly and only trim off what you need to trim. And make sure your threads are at the back. As soon as the needle catches the fabric, start pulling the threads to help pull the fabric back. So there we go. So I start pulling it just ever so gently to grab the fabric, and just take your time. You've got a fine needle in there. You do not want to put it down hell for leather. You just want to go at a nice, slow, steady pace. And there we go. We get a nice finish. And that woolly nylon gives me a fullness on that overlock. Can you see at the back where I've got just a regular overlock thread, and on the front I've got the woolly nylon? You can see it fills it up a little bit more. I could use the woolly nylon on the back as well. Now when you come to the end, it's not a good idea to turn the corner because you're dealing with such fine fabrics. It's best to finish and come off and give yourself a long chain. So give yourself a long chain like that. Snip that away and then work gently to separate these threads. So work from the end. Right, so tease all the threads separate. Careful not to pull on the fabric. And then when you've got the threads, what you want to do is separate 2 from 1 and tie a knot. Don't try to feed it through the loopers. You don't want to do that because that will add bulk to your chiffon. This is a fine fabric. So tie that nice and tight. Grab your scissors and cut close to the knot. And there we go. A lovely finish. This is what woolly nylon looks like. So it looks quite fluffy and very loosely twisted. And that's why it adds bulk. And that's why it has a little bit of a stretch, but not much, but gives a little bit of a stretch. There we are. Scarf's ready to go. Just off that now. See you soon.